All right, everybody, good afternoon. Time to turn the page to the next Seahawks division rival. We've got ourselves a discussion to have about these Los Angeles Rams, who are coming off a playoff appearance in 2023, lost in the first round to the Detroit Lions, but well overachieved most reasonable expectations for themselves in 2023, and put themselves in an interesting part of the conversation for 2024. So, there's obviously going to be a little bit of delicacy when trying to talk about these Rams. Like, it is delicate, the situation they're in. They currently have a $50 million cap hit on Matthew Stafford, who I think just turned 36 and has had injury problems in his career, including not that long ago, a pretty massive, I think it was a spine injury. But some people thought that was going to end his career. Now he came back last year, played really well, played mostly good football, but he did actually miss a couple games because of another injury, and he's only getting older, and he's got a lot of miles on him. So they are in a position where they need Stafford to hold together because they can't move off of him. Look at this dead cap hit. There's no moving off of Stafford right now. If he retires, I think he still gets his money anyway, so that doesn't help. That makes things way worse. So I'm pretty sure that they got no choice but to just hope Stafford holds together another year, which, I mean, that's better than a better position than some teams are in. But at the same time, there's been enough going on in his hospital report to where you got to wonder if this is going to be the year when it really goes to pieces. They've still got a massive amount of money invested into Aaron Donald, which, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world either, but you can't really move off of him. He is getting older, and while he did play well last year for the most part, I don't think he's going to be able to age all that well because he is an undersized interior defensive lineman. Those guys eventually hit the wall, and when they hit the wall, they hit the wall hard. They don't gracefully decline. They just, like, suddenly they can't do anything. So they are betting heavily on two players that are not necessarily the most intelligent bets. That takes up a third of your cap? More than a third of your cap is invested in those two guys. But the problem for the Seahawks when you're talking about the Rams, number one, they have such a good head coach. It's really hard for them to ever be counted out. For them to be counted out, they need to get hit with injuries so hard that it's just completely hopeless, like what happened in 2022. And when that happens, I don't know if there's a coach in NFL history that can do anything about that. But minus that kind of an impact, they're going to be okay. And unfortunately for us, they were able to dominate the draft last year in a way that defies all logic and reason when you don't even have your first round pick. They destroyed the draft last year. Puka Nasua and Kobe Turner, were the two heads of that draft class that were really able to help turn that team in the right direction in 2023. But there were other things in that draft class as well. And they have other young players that weren't necessarily part of the draft class. Guys like Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams was one of the league leaders in rushing yards, and he didn't even play in every game. Byron Young was good. Steve Avila was good. He was valuable for them. So without a first round pick, they actually managed to maybe have a better draft than the Seahawks, who had 2 first round picks. And the Seahawks did not have a bad draft at all in 2023. Not even close. That's just how good this Rams draft was, especially given the degree of difficulty. So, without them having their best draft picks, they managed to replenish their young talent base. And this is a problem. This is something that we didn't foresee happening when we were talking about the Rams. Going all in to win that Super Bowl, knowing it was going to hurt them later, doesn't hurt that much when you're able to get guys like Tutu Atwell breaking rookie records as a 5th round player. So that's changed the equation a little bit because really, you look at this, you look at their players, you look at their upcoming roster for 2024, it's Cooper Kupp is still relatively young. I know he's had some injury problems, but Cooper Kupp should still be pretty good. Joseph Noteboom is still a pretty good player. Havenstein's getting older, but I don't think he's going to be crippled yet. Brian Allen's all right. This is not a bad setup here. This is not something that the Rams are looking at and wincing. They have cap space, by the way, as of right now, and it'll go quickly, but 35 million plus in cap space according to Spotrac, and they don't have a lot leaving. If you look at their free agency list, like Troy Reader's good. Ahkello Witherspoon played well, but I don't know if they're going to feel like they have to bring him back. He's just a guy. Kevin Dotson's, I guess, kind of valuable, but a lot of these guys are just kind of like, they're just guys. They're just players. You can replace them, or you can bring them back for relatively cheap. I don't see anything here that is going to be some kind of a devastating loss for the Rams. So it just feels like this team got back on the horse way quicker than we expected, and way quicker than they should have been able to given the position that they're in. So, yeah, I hate to say it, but it feels like the Rams just bounced right back from that bad year. And I'm not really sitting here believing that they're going to be some team with a hopeless future going forward. Now, again, they're betting heavily on Stafford and Donald staying healthy when there's plenty of evidence to indicate that they won't, because they've always... They're older players that have always, I don't want to say always, but in recent years give you reason to believe they're not going to be able to hold it together. But, excuse me, there's a good foundation here. And while they might end up using their draft capital this year, because for the record, they do have their first round pick this year. They're picking 19th overall. They might end up using that pick to get a quarterback of the future because they're planning for life after Stafford, because he is old and he is starting to get dinged up a little bit. Even if they do that, the foundation's not bad. They've got two really good receivers. They've got a workable offensive line. It's not great, but it works for what they do. They've got a couple pieces on defense that are nice beyond just Aaron Donald, because they hit the rookie class well. Again, guys like Byron Young and Kobe Turner were very useful. Kyren Williams was one of the best running backs in the league. They could expend their first round pick on a quarterback like a Penix, like a, I guess Rattler, if Rattler goes up to the first round, like a Bo Nix, like a J.J. McCarthy, if they like those guys, and then turn around and say, hey, we're still planning on competing in 2024. We have enough to be good, especially with our coaching staff. So... I was kind of hoping that 2023 would be like the last gasp of the Rams with Stafford and Donald and to a lesser extent Kupp. But I'm not feeling it. I'm looking at this and I'm not really feeling that's the case. I think they replenished well. I think they gave themselves some quality depth. I think they can overcome a lot of their talent deficiencies because of McVay. And to me, the only... The main focus has to be on Mike Macdonald figuring out the McVay offense. Because in previous years, that was the main thing, right? Every time you played against the Rams, or really the last few years, you'd say the Niners as well, you just knew Pete Carroll was going to get destroyed. He couldn't handle it. McVay came into this league with a missive to learn how to destroy Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll struggled to figure out how to answer it. He had some success, but it was never enough to actually win games. So if you're bringing in a new coach, you're hoping you're going to be able to answer that back. And I do think that you saw that Mike Macdonald is capable of dismantling some of these offensive game plans in a way that Pete just couldn't figure out. So that's nice. But even beyond that, it doesn't feel like this Rams team is going to miss too much of a beat unless Stafford goes down. And by the way, take a look at this. They've got like no dead cap in 2024. Just to give you guys an idea of how cleanly they've broken off from their last regime. Well, not regime, but last core. They dumped guys like Jalen Ramsey. They lost a guy like a Von Miller. They dumped guys like Leonard Floyd. They dumped, I'm blanking on a couple names there. They dumped Bobby Wagner, actually. That's another good one last year. They dumped, I want to say, Taylor Rapp. They moved off of all these players, ate a ton of dead money, but now they're sitting pretty. I don't think they're going to have to take on that much dead money this offseason. They have money right now. They're way better with their salary cap situation than the Seahawks. $35 million, that'll take care of pretty much everything they need to do this offseason, I feel like. So I don't see them cutting players to make space. There's not a lot of players you can cut anyway if you look at this. Maybe Brian Allen, but They're in a pretty good position, guys. Sorry to say. Sorry to say. I really thought the Rams might be on the mat for a couple years, but this isn't just a thing where the Rams always beat the Seahawks. That doesn't apply for something like this, where the Rams actually were able to make the playoffs by winning games not against the Seahawks. They had to have a lot of success to get themselves to the playoffs last year outside of just the two Seahawks games. So that's not the issue here. The issue here is just they did a phenomenal job drafting with very little capital, and now we're sitting here looking at the roster wondering why things got so good so quickly. All right, so those are my thoughts on the Rams going forward. They're obviously a little bit on the older side, but I don't think they are poorly positioned. They're gambling on the health of their quarterback, but who doesn't do that? Every team does that. Their bet is just a little bit worse than other teams' bets because Stafford's old. All right, see you guys later. We'll talk about our final division rival later today. Let me know what you think about the Rams going into 2024. See you guys later. Go Hawks.